Sometimes we all need encouragement. And today I want to talk to you about encouraging, energizing faith. Sometimes life becomes discouraging. We get overwhelmed by responsibilities. We feel like we don't have enough energy, enough power to do what we need to do. I want to tell you, grace not only saves your soul, but grace encourages your heart and energizes you to keep serving God even when it's difficult. Several years ago, I had a son that was literally dying in the hospital. Every day it was a debate on whether he was going to live or die. The end of the story is he lived and he's serving God now. But going through that every day, I felt like God was saying to me, look, Dave, I'm not going to tell you the future, but I'm going to tell you this. I will give you all the grace you need for everything you're going to face today. All the grace you need for everything you're going to face today. And I found that to be true. And the Apostle Paul found that to be true as well. In 1 Corinthians 15, he's talking about the resurrected Jesus Christ, all the people that saw Jesus, including all the apostles that saw the resurrected Jesus. And he says that of all the apostles, he's the least of the apostles. Verse 9. Who am not worthy to be called an apostle because I persecuted the church. He says, I'm the least of the apostles. I'm not worthy. Maybe you feel like that. I'm not very tall. I've always been the least in my class, the least compared to other people in the room. I'm the least of so many things. I don't have as much education as some of my peers. I don't have as much success in certain areas of my life. I don't have as much finances. My parents weren't wealthy or educated or influential. I'm the least. And sometimes I feel unworthy because I've done things in my life that I regret. I've made mistakes. I've failed in certain situations. Maybe you feel like that sometimes. But I want you to understand God's grace is encouraging. He says, I'm the least, I'm unworthy. But in verse 10 he says, but by the grace of God, I am what I am. And if you look through the rest of his letters, we find that he says that he's loved. That's who he is. He's somebody that's been called by God. He's somebody that's been cleansed by God. He's somebody that's been forgiven. He's been justified. He's been redeemed. He's somebody who's significant to God. Somebody who's been chosen and commissioned by God. He is what he is, and in God, in Christ, that's pretty amazing. It's encouraging. It's affirming. I want to encourage you. In Christ, you are amazing. You are significant. You are important. It doesn't matter if you're poor or your ministry's small or you're not super educated. Understand this. To God, you are significant. By the grace of God, you are what you are. By the grace of God, Paul, who thought he was so unworthy, wrote half the New Testament. He started so many churches. He's had such an impact on history, on so many people. By the grace of God, we are what we are. God's grace is encouraging, but it's also energizing. He says in verse 10, by the grace of God, I am who I am, and his grace toward me is not in vain, but I labored more abundantly than they all, yet not I, but the grace of God with me. He says, I worked more abundantly than all the other apostles. I've actually had more impact, if you want the truth. He says, but it's not I. I've been crucified with Christ. It's no longer I who live, but Christ who lives in me. His grace lives in me. His grace empowers me, but it's the grace of God with me. God will give you everything you need for everything you're facing, but you got to believe that. It says in verse 11, this is received when it is believed. It is received when it is believed. Grace is always received by faith. You can't earn it. Grace is a gift. It's an undeserved gift. You can't earn it. It's the gift of God you receive through faith.